good cosplay project, I start out with a pattern. This pattern you can find on my Patreon this month at patreon.com/skylinestars, and it will also be on my Ko-Fi, which is ko-fi.com/skylinestars. Once you have them all taped together, it does take a lot of tape, you will have this giant sword. Here is the size, scale, and reference, and peep the Minecraft behind me, you know, gotta enjoy that. But for the base of the sword, I use my classic insulation foam board and some PVC pipe to go ahead and add some support and rigidity to the sword. Here I am laying out the pieces on the insulation foam as well as the pipe. You see it runs from the tip of the sword all the way to the top of the sword. To cut out the sword blade, I go ahead and mark it with a pencil and cut it out with this hot foam cutter. Make sure to always wear a respirator and work in a well-ventilated area when working with this because it is toxic and nasty. I trace more of the hilt and sword pieces onto more insulation foam board, of course, before hot foam cutting them out. Next, taking my hot glue gun, I hot glued the insulation foam directly to the PVC pipe. I do this because insulation foam actually melts when you use contact cement, so I didn't use that. Also using hot glue, I added some spacer bits of some leftover EVA foam just to give it more support and make sure that the pipe was actually glued to the insulation foam pieces. Here is a quick test here. It is pretty sturdy. It's a little floppy, but as long as you don't like swing it too hard, it should be fine. And for those that are worried about the pipe showing through, we're actually going to take the top piece of the sword, which is that black piece there, and we're going to cover it with 1mm EVA foam. But before I do that, I go ahead and do the handle pieces, which I just wrap in more 1mm EVA foam and some 3mm EVA foam just to give it more of that texture and sort of visual interest with raised details. As always, make sure you wear your respirator when working with contact cement, and be sure to avoid the insulation foam with contact cement. Here's the handle pieces coming together. You can see that I have wrapped it in this 1mm foam so that I can paint it better, and I've also added the sort of 3D details. Here is the sort of hilt, sword guard, handle guard, whatever those are called, like wing things, as well as the base, which I will be gluing everything onto. Here it is all glued together, all the pieces are sort of fitting together, just how the pattern shows. I actually had to use hot glue gun on my EVA foam because I ran out of contact cement, and I honestly don't really love that little hang off piece right there, but I just have to deal with it. Time crunch and all. Here is the sword fully, it has all of its pieces blocked out. I really liked how it looked at this point, and I was really excited to get to the painting portion. But before we could do that, we had to do my favorite part, which of course is sanding. I started with a 60 grit sandpaper to remove majority of the blade, and I just sort of tapered it off until the sides sort of made a point, similar to like a sword. Here's yet another reminder to always wear your respirator when working, especially when sanding too, because look at how much foam dust accumulated. Like, it is crazy. You don't want this in your lungs at all. Here's the tapered edge. I actually went back and smoothed it over with some 120 grit sandpaper just to make it a little bit less rough. You can see the two edges right here. Before finally getting to prime the entire thing with Mod Podge and white paint. This is important because you can't aerosol spray insulation foam or it will melt. Ask me how I know. So I have the sword primed with Mod Podge, like that, so it's it won't melt when I actually prime it with the actual primer. This takes the longest part of making the sword, is just waiting for all the layers to dry. But after that, it is time to paint. I think I can only get one side painted before this video goes out, but you know, you live and you learn, and it's coming along really nicely. It's very long, as you can see, but most of the details in the hilt. But I'm really excited to paint this because all of the details are pretty much like painted on. So let's get spraying. After everything was completely dried, I went ahead and added the base colors, starting with the black base here, and then the silver part here. I actually went back and lightened this up so it's not too dark, but silver, nice effect. added the gold and blue pieces to the hilt and the gems, and I was really enjoying how this was turning out, but as you can see, it's always good to add multiple layers of paint or else you'll end up with this streaky weirdness going on. And here is, of course, my favorite part when it comes to any cosplay is adding the painted details. So this one has a lot of this really cool gold pieces, so I went ahead and added my gold texturing and painting that I was doing across all of Noelle's armor so that everything was cohesive. And I love this sort of painterly effect. Here's what it looks like without shadows, and you wouldn't believe how much like depth shadows add to this, because it's already pretty, you know, defying as it is, but adding shadows like right here really makes everything pop, especially on the hilts where these two pieces meet. Once the hilt has been painted, I go ahead and start painstakingly adding on the details here. I free-handed this, but in reality I should have taken the time to cut them out and sort of made a stencil out of them, but when it comes to time crunch, I had to do what I had to do. Here is the sort of rough layout of the paint. It's a little wonky. Again, I should have done it with a stencil, but hey, it works out and I think it looks pretty cool. Finally, I go ahead and fill in all of the marks just to make it a little bit more opaque, and then we have our final sword. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and here are some glamour shots of the sword. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and I hope you enjoyed this crafting tutorial. Just a reminder, you can get my complete Noelle cosplay patterns, tutorials, and photo set this month on Patreon. Just a couple days left. But if you happen to be watching this video far into the future, I will also have these patterns up on my Ko-Fi and my Etsy, so check them out. As always, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a like and a comment. And if you are new here, please hit the subscribe button to see more crafting tutorials, weirdness, cosplay. You know, I just do a variety of stuff here. And of course, a special thank you to my patrons, Bulls, Jay, and Gunfighter Bull. Thank you all so much for your support. It means the world to me.